So today, I'll be talking about storytelling in design and architecture and basically try to tie it into what we've been discussing so far. Before we go into the discussion, I want to ask a question. It's not a trick question. There's nothing underneath. What object is on screen? Pillow. Very good. I want you to hold that answer in one hand. We're going to need it as we go on. Who remembers Tales by Moonlight? NTA, early 2000s. Oh, there are some elderly people in the house. Who remembers the sound? Oh, no, you know it. Who remembers the soundtrack for Tales by Moonlight? Exactly. Even Kiss Daniel had to sample it. It was that epic. Now, if you think back to that show, it had some really fantastical stories about the tortoise doing weird stuff. And I think for a while, I actually believed that the tortoise was a terrible creature. I didn't realize that it's just an animal trying to live. They just pinned a lot of atrocities on that guy. But the point of those stories were to convey certain values, right? So they would say, oh, the tortoise was having an issue with his wife. They were trying to conceive, and they went to a native doctor, and he gave them soup. There was that particular one. He gave the guy soup. It was like seafood okra or something. And he ate everything, and then he got pregnant instead. And, of course, he couldn't deliver. So that was a problem. The point of that story is not the fantastical things that happened there. The point of the story was, don't eye what is not yours. Don't have long throats, basically. Don't be greedy. Things like that. But they built this narrative around it to support it. And that's pretty much storytelling. It's the ability that you have to take an intention and convey it to somebody in a very seamless way that they just get the message straight. Now, you look at this image. I asked you, what's the object on screen? You said a pillow, right? And I'm sure you're referring to the white pillow on screen, right? Exactly. That is storytelling. Because at the end of the day, there are several objects in this frame, but one of them stands out to you because the photographer did a very good job of telling that story. First of all, placed it in the center, went close to it, surrounded that pillow with darker material so that it stands out. The third thing was, had the light pour on the pillow, that white pillow, much more than the surrounding. So it was basically guiding you to that decision with several little things, but you don't really know until you break it down. And that's the idea. Let's do another image. This time I want to involve you. And let's go to the next slide. Let's see. What's the object? I can't. Exactly, it's the house. It's the house in this case. It's not a small object, it's a house. Can you tell me how that difference was created here? Can you give me ideas? Lights, precisely. The light and the color of the light versus the environment too. That contrast. Is there anything else? You were saying something. The position. So it's shifted away from the center to create tension. Great. Fantastic. You were going to say something? Okay. So you can see that the entire environment just feels completely dark and it isolates that building there. The intention is the building, but we have a lot of things happening that lets you see that building. So let's do one more before we go on. Okay, this one. What's the intention? What's the object? Exactly. So that thing that looks like a gazebo, that looks like a temple, whatever it is, that's the object. And you can see how that was achieved here. Who wants to help me out on this one? Can we get a few people? Okay. The silhouette, actually. The silhouette. So you can see that the background is really bright, but the building itself seems to be in shadow. That contrast separates it, and you have the building actually showing. Is there more? Can we have more? No, not. We're still on this slide. Yes. The background, which is misty, so you don't get details from it. If you check the structure of these trees, 1, 2, 3, 4, it seems like they are leading you down the path to the building. But like I said again, the intent is the building. So I'll be talking about intent. Let's go to the next slide and how this relates to your design practice and the things that you will be doing. So the first thing that I want to say on this is you need to understand that getting the honest intent of a project is the beginning of its success. Most people are not truthful to themselves. That's the reason why a design brief is not a good way to get the intent of a project. It's good to get information. It's good to get some data. It's nice, but the truth is the actual intent behind that project is very rarely inside a design brief. 2019, this client comes and he says, oh, I want to do a residential building in Abuja then. And he wrote the brief and then said something in particular. I said, don't design any modern building for me. I want a classical building, which I'm like, cool. no problem. That makes my work very easy. But he had this associate that was like, no, I think he will regret it. Let's do something modern. Me, I'm like, the man already spoke. Like, just allow us be. Let this thing move smoothly. He was paying very well. So I'm like, this thing can be a very quick work. We can do it and finish. But, the man insisted, and, we agreed to do it. But the issue that I had then was, how do we spend that amount of time doing an option when I know he will reject it? It didn't make sense to me. So what eventually I did was to try and read between the lines, to try and understand him more. Client psychology. Try to understand what this person really wants at the core that may not really be in the brief. From conversations, I realized that he's just the kind of person that likes to show up strong, likes to be a bit intimidating, likes the things that he has to command presence. And the truth is, classical buildings do that by default. He didn't say that to me. It was something that was observed. That was his intent. So what we did was, okay, let's see how we can do a modern building that can embody all these things that he likes. Did the design. And for the first time, he said, this is the first time I'm seeing a modern building that I like, because it reflected him, full stop. The intent was not said, but it was extracted somehow. Building reflected him. He was extremely happy, asking, oh, did you study abroad? I said, no, just because the building reflected him. So being able to get the intent from your client is extremely important. If you can do that, you've solved most of the projects that you're doing upfront. A second example was, the client comes, this one is completely different, right? The client comes, she wants to do a 3-bedroom. She's already saying, architect, I don't have a lot of money for design. You know how it can be sometimes. I don't have money for design, but you're going to build and spend millions. You know how it goes. So I don't have money for design, but I want to do this and this and this. Then in the conversation, she asked a question. She said, architect, this building, how many blocks do you think will finish it? The moment she said that, I said, I got you today. She was more concerned about cost control than the design. So I just shifted conversation. I said, don't worry, we'll do a nice design for you. But along with your design, you would have a document that shows the materials that would be used, that shows the cost, that shows the quantities. Nobody would cheat you during construction. That was all she wanted to hear. And I told her that without this document, you may end up spending 50 to 80% more on your construction than you should. All of a sudden, when you do those numbers, if I would spend 70 million building, if I don't have this said document, which is a BOQ, by the way, it's not. So if I don't have this said document, I might spend 35 million to 40 to 50 million more than I should spend on this building. Architect, I have money to pay you now. Now, she didn't say it that way, but it was a simple conversation from there on, because now she can see, okay, my problem is cost control, and I can easily see how this person solves the problem for me. So it wasn't design per se that got that deal over the line. It was the fact that it was easy to see what the real intent of that person was. And that way, you could actually just talk to that and get the job done. So being able to get the intent of projects is extremely important. If you're doing consultancy and people are coming to you for work, you may have to dig beyond the brief. You may have to listen to them talk. I think it was architect Bangboka that was saying it, that sometimes you go and check their profile, see their lifestyle. It's always a very good thing to understand people beyond what they tell you, because by nature, human beings are not truthful to themselves. We try to keep up appearances. We try to send out messages that we want people to get, but maybe not the true message of ourselves. So you need to find a way to block out that noise and get to the root of the matter. Let's do the last slide. It's pretty much a question. If you start any project, or whenever you do, ask yourself the question, what is the true intent behind this project I'm doing? It makes a lot of difference. It's that way that you would be able to tell whatever kind of story it is that you want to tell. The client is the one that owns the intent of the project at the end of the day. It's the client that owns the intent of the project. So until you start building your own projects and financing them, you may not be able to express yourself fully the way you would like. But if it's a client's work, which many of us are doing right now, it's always good to understand the intent so that you can convey your story to the fullest. Thank you very much.